Colin Kaepernick reportedly wants to put President Trump on the witness stand. Kaepernick is the quarterback who began the NFL's kneeling protest during the national anthem, as you recall. And Yahoo Sports is reporting that Kaepernick's attorneys want to subpoena Trump to testify in his lawsuit against the NFL. Well, Kaepernick filed a grievance case against the NFL after no team would hire him. So does Cap have a case? Let's debate that with the Reverend Jesse Jackson. Reverend Jackson, I don't think you and I have talked since like 1998. So I'm glad to have you on the show. Thanks so much for being with us. Let's talk about what is going on with this NFL, these NFL protests. Do you actually think that the NFL lawsuit that Kaepernick apparently is going to file as grievance would be a proper grounds to have Donald Trump, the president of the United States, testify, and why?
Well, he exercised his First Amendment right to protest for his rights. The protest really was about police brutality that went unanswered. Rodney King beaten nearly to death without consequences. Diallo shot and killed in New York by police but without consequences. Abner Louima jammed in the rectum until he nearly bled to death in New York. The case of Brown in Ferguson, Missouri. And so somebody said, well, don't Black Lives Matter? Aren't there consequences to what's happening to us? And the kneeling was an appeal to the flag in a peaceful protest. It was not burning or desecrating the flag, an appeal. We got on our knees appealing for the government to recognize our right to vote in 1965. So there was nothing harmful or threatening about kneeling to the flag.
No, I understand what your point of view is on that totally. I get it. But what does that have to do with President Trump testifying in a grievance against the NFL? I mean,
By interfering in the process, he has convinced his constituents of the de facto boycott and the owners to, in fact, put a penalty before the players if they, in fact, choose to protest,
well,
which they have the right. Well, his opinion is no ordinary opinion because he's the president, and he has campaigned.
But the NFL.
No.
We're not going to get past that because, as a legal matter, that's just preposterous. I mean, the president is not going to testify in Colin Kaepernick's suit. It's never going to happen. His lawyer knows it's never going to happen. His lawyer, frankly, should be sanctioned if he actually tries anything like that. If a judge had any matter, he'd actually be sanctioned because it's a spurious argument.
Part of it is now the way, for example, he protested. He used the Philadelphia Eagles, who in fact did not take a knee last year, as a basis to turn the public against an 80% black.
No, I don't think,
by the workers.
Again, I would have had them come, Reverend Jackson, I would have had them come to the White House. If it was two people or if it was one, I would have made a different decision. But also, I think it would be fair if you and anyone examining this would say, if you submit 80 names to the Secret Service and then like 3 days later say, oh, sorry, we can't make it, and like two people and the mascot are coming, and we'll reschedule it when you're in Singapore, that's just lame. They knew what they were doing. They did it on purpose, and that was low rent, okay? So that was low rent.
What is Kaepernick, LeBron James, and Steph Curry, they're all saying we're insulted by the violations of our people by this president. When you
is that the black unemployment? Is that part of the violations of the people? I mean, is there any good news for black America under this administration? Do you like the unemployment numbers? Do you like small businesses being created?
He inherited a growing economy. When President Barack came in, we lost 800,000 jobs that month.
Okay, so it gets no credit.
A net gain of jobs for every month for 8 years.
Wages weren't going up.
It continues to grow.
Wages weren't going up, Jesse. They were not going up.
And they're still not, because 54% of all blacks make less than $15 an hour, and a significant amount make less than $10. But right now, it's premature to determine what's going to happen with this provocative action toward Canada and Mexico, our neighbors, to trigger the
we'll actually have better paying jobs in the United States. We'll actually have more manufacturing where people who don't go to fancy colleges actually can get a really high-paying job like they used to when we actually had tariffs that were put in place by Democrat presidents and Republican presidents. So the tariffs thing, how you're turning that into an anti-black thing is beyond me.
Well, it's not just black. If working poor half of America have more money than money. And if in fact they have a job, in Chicago you may have to go through three transportation transfers to get to work. Transportation, student loan debt, credit card debt.
So Reverend Jackson, were you okay when like millions of jobs were being sent overseas due to globalization and millions of jobs were being bled off to countries like Mexico? That was good for Black America? Because call me crazy, I don't think that was good for working class people at all. We lost millions of jobs. And this president is actually bringing back jobs into the United States and doing stuff like prison reform with Jared Kushner and others who are working together, including with Democrats. So it's, from what I can hear, this president has done nothing good for Black America. Is that what you're saying tonight? Nothing? I'm
not saying that. You know what, Laura? You keep cutting me off. But my point is that if you 54% of all blacks make less than $50 an hour, you're the working poor. And you're working, but you can't afford the health care because you want to cut that and shift the money to the top 1%. Working, but you can't afford the college education. Work, but you can't afford public adequate housing.
How did Barack Obama change that?
Well, he did not change it significantly enough, but the fact is unemployment went from 10% down to 5%.
Yeah, now it's at a record low. The Atlantic headline, Jesse Jackson. Jesse, the Atlantic's headline on this, how Barack Obama has failed Americans. The country's first black president never pursued policies bold enough to close the racial wealth gap. December 22nd, 2016.
26 million Americans had health care that did not have it before, and there's been an attempt to cut it off.
Right, and rates are going up now because the system was unsustainable. Look, I actually think there's a lot you could do with this president. I really think there's a lot you could do to work with him on prison reform and other issues. I think these NFL players could work with the president. I just think there's a lot you could do.
Well, Laura, it seems to me that when you lock people up for crack and cocaine and says
well, that's not just him. That's been done for decades. Don't blame him for that.
And then you free them up. So opioid is a health crisis. So one goes to the hospital, one goes to jail. Of course, you should set people free.
Well, you used to be pals with him, right?
Should be jail in the first place.
You were pals with President Trump, right? When he was not a president, you were pals with him. What happened?
Well, until he changed. I mean, here's a guy that looked at 5 kids at the Central Park 5, determined even when they were declared innocent, they were guilty enough to be executed. Here's a guy who looked at the marches in Charlottesville, Virginia, equated the marches for freedom with the Nazi and Ku Klux Klan. So he changed.
So he's just a different person, you think? Okay. We're glad you came on. Sorry we couldn't find more common ground. I think you could find it with this president because I think he's going to do great things for Black America.